Hello, lovelies! As you guys probably know by now, this channel is dedicated to making your lives in the kitchen easier. And a few weeks ago, I shared some 5-minute breakfast ideas that you seem to love. So today it felt fitting to go ahead and share some new 5-minute lunch ideas that I think will be a hit in your household as well. As some of you may know, I recently became a new mom, so 5-minute meals are pretty much the only thing I have time for these days. And thus, you are getting 5-minute lunches that are totally delicious and have been total lifesavers in my household over the last few months. Speaking of making your lives easier, I will remind you that my brand new cookbook, Meals Made Easy, will be hitting store shelves in less than a month. Obviously, guys, I am so pumped to share it with you as it is loaded with recipes that are also all about making your lives in the kitchen easier. And as a special bonus, guys, for anyone who pre-orders the book, you're going to get a sneak peek at 5 of my very favorite recipes. All you need to do is fill out the form in the description box with your proof of purchase, and then we are going to email you a PDF with 5 delicious dishes from the cookbook that you get to see before anyone else. How great is that? Now, without further ado, let's get to today's kitchen adventure, 5-minute lunches that are as tasty as they are simple to make. Starting with this amazing crunchy tuna pita pocket. I love this recipe because it's full of beautiful flavors and textures, and of course, super portable thanks to the pita. Now, in this recipe, I am using some flaked tuna. I always recommend using sustainable brands because of course we need to take care of our oceans. If you're not into tuna, you could actually do this with chicken if you wanted to. You could also do this with chickpea if you wanted to keep this vegetarian. There's lots of great options here. I have my tuna drained in a bowl like this, and to that I'm going to add a whole lot of veggies with some great nutrition and some great crunch. So I'm going to be adding some cucumber to this, some red bell pepper, some thinly sliced celery, and finally I'm going to add a little bit of finely diced red onion. This is totally optional if you're worried about stinky breath at a meeting in the afternoon. Just leave the onion out. You're the boss of you. It's totally fine. Now, when you think of tuna salad, usually you think of something really heavy that's made with mayo. You may be surprised to hear that there's absolutely no mayo in this recipe. So I'm going to add just a touch of olive oil to this, and I'm also going to add the juice of half a lemon. That's going to be our dressing for this tuna salad. I'll hit this with some salt and pepper, give it a good mix, and it is ready to be stuffed into our pita pockets. Now, of course, the pita pockets are optional here. If you want to use some lettuce wraps, that will totally work. You could put this on bread if you wanted to, or you could just go ahead and eat this with a fork. Any of those options are great, but I love pita pockets because, of course, they make everything so portable. I'm just going to add a little fresh leaf lettuce to my pita pockets and then pile in my delicious crunchy tuna salad. Then you can simply repeat the same steps with the next ones and you'll have a bunch of amazing lunch pitas ready to go. Now, of course, when it comes to pitas, it's really important not to stuff them until just before eating them. Otherwise, they can tend to get a little soggy and nobody wants a soggy pita. Am I right? Next, you guys know how much I love lunch bowls, and this Southwestern barbecue chicken bowl has recently become a favorite in my household. The barbecue sauce in this recipe adds a sweet tanginess to all the traditional Southwestern flavors, and it's really, really very satisfying. So there's a lot to like here. For this recipe, I'm using some leftover chicken that's just been shredded up. You could do this with a rotisserie chicken or whatever leftover chicken you have from dinner last night. All I'm going to do is toss that in a little bit of barbecue sauce, and then I'm going to pile it onto a bed of greens. Now, you could use rice or quinoa in this recipe if you want to make this even more filling, but I like keeping it a little bit lighter. To that, I'm going to add even more fiber and protein with some canned black beans that have been drained and rinsed. To pump up the nutrition factor here, I've got some fresh tomatoes headed on, as well as some corn kernels. And then instead of a traditional dressing in this recipe, I'm going to top this with a few tablespoons of guacamole. This is some store-bought guacamole, but of course you can always make your own. I will link a recipe in the description box. I like serving this up simply with some fresh lime. How beautiful and colorful is this bowl? And there you go, guys, a lunch you'll actually want to eat in 5 minutes or less. Our next recipe is the one I think I am most excited about today. It is our Green Goddess sandwich. Now, if you're not familiar with the concept of Green Goddess, it actually is a salad dressing that was really famous in the 40s and then again in the 70s. that basically had a ton of fresh herbs in it. As you can see, we have a ton of green ingredients headed in here. This delicious sandwich is going to start with some beautiful green avocado. I'm just gonna start by giving it a good mash. Once your avocado is sufficiently mashed, you can go ahead and add some herbs. So I'm adding a combination of fresh parsley to this. I've got some freshly chopped basil as well, and I'm also going to go in with a whole lot of chives. Most fresh herbs will work in this recipe, so use whatever you have in your fridge. I'm going to add a little bit of lemon juice to this, some salt and pepper, and then give it all another good smash. Next, I'm just going to take this mixture and spread it on some whole grain bread. I'm using some ancient grain bread in this recipe. Of course, any bread will really do. Once you've got your smashed avocado down, you can pile on some crunch with some thinly sliced cucumbers. Next, I'm adding some crumbled goat cheese to this, which of course is optional if you want to keep this recipe vegan. You leave the goat cheese out, totally fine. To pump up that green factor even more, I'm also adding some peppery arugula to this, and I'm going to finish it off with some nice crunchy broccoli sprouts. How gorgeous is this, guys? I'm going to top it with my second piece of bread, and as far as sandwiches go, this is a total winner. The lunchroom will be green with envy, people. Next, you guys probably know as well as I do that the Mediterranean diet is considered one of the healthiest in the world, and it's not hard to understand why. So I'm going to share a Mediterranean lunch bowl that's super simple to put together, but has tons of great nutrition in it. I'm starting with some kale here. If you're not a fan of kale, you could use other greens if you wanted to, or you could use rice or quinoa here instead if you want to make this a little heartier. All of those are great options. And to that, for my protein, I'm adding some canned chickpeas that have been drained and rinsed. My dressing for this recipe, I'm keeping super simple. It's actually just some oil and some red wine vinegar. But to make things even more flavorful, instead of just traditional olive oil, I'm actually using the oil from my sun-dried tomato jar. You could also use the oil from your marinated artichoke hearts if you want to. It's just a little more flavorful, a little more seasoned. And then, like I said, I'm going to add a splash of red wine vinegar to this as well. And then I just want to give this all a toss. Now, most of you know, some of you might not, that I am obsessed with artichoke hearts. They are my favorite thing. I buy artichoke hearts that are marinated in oil. So tasty, great texture. I'm gonna pile some artichoke hearts onto this bowl. I've got some Kalamata olives headed on here, really heart healthy. I'm also adding some sun-dried tomatoes to this for some great flavor. And finally, I'm going to pile on some cubes of feta cheese. The feta cheese is definitely optional if you want to keep this vegan. Go ahead and leave it out. How easy is that? 5 minutes or less, and you are eating this incredible, nutrient-dense, but super flavorful lunch. Finally, to wrap things up today, I'm going to show you a really delicious wrap. This one is my hummus and chicken wrap, and it is packed with enough protein and fiber to keep you full till dinner. I'm starting with a whole wheat tortilla. I'm going to load on some hummus here. Of course, we know hummus is not only loaded with fiber and protein, but it also has a ton of great flavor as well. For even more great protein, I've got some cooked shredded chicken headed onto my wrap. You could swap in some tuna here as well. Both will really work. Next, for my greens, instead of using something super traditional like spinach, which I find is a little lackluster in a wrap because it gets a bit soggy, I'm using some broccoli sprouts, which not only pack great nutrition, but also have really good texture. I'm going to load in some avocado here as well. And then finally, I've got some thinly sliced radish headed on this wrap. All you need to do is wrap it all up and it is ready to rock and roll. The perfect lunch on the go. Guys, I hope you found all 5 of these recipes inspiring and that you'll give them a try for yourselves. If you do, as always, be sure to tweet me, Instagram me, or Facebook me a photo because I love seeing your kitchen creations. Remember, my brand new cookbook, Meals Made Easy, is available for pre-order now. All those details are in the description box. As always, I really appreciate your support. And finally, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe because there is lots more deliciousness where this came from.